David Rose is an entrepreneur and instructor at the MIT Media Lab, specializing in how digital information interfaces with the physical environment. He founded the startup Ambient Devices, pioneering technology that embeds internet information in everyday objects like lamps, mirrors, and umbrellas. Rose is currently the CEO of Ditto Labs and lives in Brookline in a home that the New York Times recently described just today as, quote, a contemporary version of the Burrow, the magical home of the Weasley family in the Harry Potter series.
But we don't have 12 kids, so that's good.
Today's Times piece, titled Putting Magic in the Mundane, goes on to describe the world of enchanted objects, programmable everyday objects that do extraordinary things, like talking pill bottles, a teleporting cabinet, open a door and it connects by Skype to Mr. Rose's parents in Wisconsin, and glowing orbs nestled among the design within reach furniture.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to use my stage voice and project so that I don't have to stand behind that all the time. But this is a wonderful turnout, and I especially wanted to thank and acknowledge my family who came, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, and my enchanted object, my most enchanted object, Sharon. So thank you so much for for joining tonight. I hope they don't ask hard questions later. So I thought I brought posters for you. We have sort of an activity where I asked people to put a dot on the thing that they think they would most want in their life and a red dot on the thing they think they would least want in their life. And maybe the dots will be changed or revealed as I explain what some of the products are. But I thought I would talk for 20 minutes or so and then take questions. But I'm used to teaching, so if you really have a burning question, you should definitely ask me right then. I was really pleased that about the New York Times piece today in the home section. You can watch it on your own. All right, so here's my book report, so you don't have to read the book. So the world of enchanted objects starts with four conceptions of where technology will be located. And the first notion is that the world that we understand now as the world of black slabs, of smartphones, of iPhones and tablets and phablets, the place where most people think technology is going with app stores, I call the terminal world because I'm not for it for a number of reasons. And it's interesting to watch this Microsoft concept video because the interface that they imagined a couple of years ago, which is this gesturable screen surface that's located either in a plane or in more and more surfaces of our life, sort of has the same interaction that we expect today. It has this call and response view of the world where it's sort of patiently waiting for you to respond to it, but ultimately it has the same, it demands a lot of our attention, and I feel like is a dead end because the world of painted pixels will make most of our living rooms and our lives this sort of place that's like Times Square. It seems like that's not taking advantage of a lot of the other inherent features of the objects and the things that we interact with every day today. The second version of the future, I guess the question for all of you is sort of which future do you want to live in? There are four options. The second version of the future I call prosthetics, which is to embed the technology that we use into ourselves and onto ourselves. And sort of the fantasy there is the superpowers of Iron Man or of Superman. Now, I think if you've lost if you've lost limbs, like Hugh Hare, my colleague at the Media Lab, this is a magical and important future to replace a deficit like this. Ultimately, I feel like where this goes, though, is it's the same isolation that we felt when everyone started wearing Sony Walkmans, and we didn't have an audio space that we shared. Right? We couldn't talk to each other as much because everyone had headphones on. And just think about what happens when everyone has a different view of reality because we're all looking through Google Glass. And your world will be different than the world that I see. And so it will be hard to have conversations about much of anything because we'll all have these privatized views of reality. There's a book called The Bubble Filter. How many people read The Bubble Filter? So the notion there was that we will all have a different view. We all are increasingly having a different view of reality because of the filters that Amazon and Fox News and Yahoo are putting onto the news. We're all seeing different things. We don't see the same thing. The third view of the future is to, rather than having technology in and on ourselves, is to delegate it, sort of delegate it to other things and other people, or things that are close to people. So this is the world of social robots. And I think this is interesting because we've always had the fantasy that our technology will look like us. You know, we were created in God's image, and we would like our technology to be created in our image. And so we see this in science fiction and also in the robots that lots of companies are making today. And I think of this as sort of the Downton Abbey future, which is this future where we have our people for everything. You know, we have sort of one robot that's cooking, and another robot that's teaching us things, and another robot that's getting us around. But ultimately, sort of the technology doesn't need to be part of us because it can be part of other things that serve us. Now, I have colleagues at the Media Lab that are just released a robot this week called Jibo. Did anybody see the video for Jibo? So Jibo is trying to be a robot that sits on your counter and is cute and sort of bonds with you emotionally, and will take pictures and will talk to you and will read you your email. And it has this sort of ability to sense emotion and ability to display emotion. And I feel like if you extrapolate that forward, it's problematic, and I'll explain why. So just another example. This is a robot that was created by another Media Lab grad called Autumn. And the idea here is that this robot has such big eyes, such characteristics of youth, of something that, like Japanese anime, of something that you really love and you bond with, that it sits in your kitchen next to your fridge and tries to make you guilty about what you eat. So the object is a sort of weight loss robot, but it's trying to it's more effective maybe than an iPad app because it has big eyes and you sort of you bond with it. And I think all of these are sort of heading towards this hope that we can make computers in our own image and make robots in our own image. And I think this falls off a cliff into the uncanny valley where these things start to become so human-like that they really threaten our own sense of humanity, and they become sort of golems. So Masahiro Mori coined this term decades ago called the uncanny valley, which is the better that we are at making technology that has human likeness, the more creepy it will be and the less we will want to spend any time with it at all. So I think that's sort of one of the reasons that I talk about that animism is a sort of empty road to go down. So, ta-da! The most, I think, desirable future is one where ordinary objects become imbued with a little bit of technology, just a little bit of extra sense and a little bit of extra service because they have connectivity and computation. And let me give you some examples of how that looks. So back a couple of companies ago, we invented this product called the ambient umbrella. And the idea was really inspired by Frodo, who had a sword. Anybody know what Frodo's sword do? Can you tell me?
It lights up when your orcs nearby.
Right. So it's very convenient because it anticipates its own use, right? So if orcs are in range, it sort of signals that it's needed. You can imagine like golf clubs that light up when it's perfect weather out or something. But the umbrella really signals its own use, and it also signals it at the right time, right? So it's putting a little bit of information at the decisional moment, like right when you're walking out the door, and it's sort of better than an app, I think, because you never have to tap on anything. Checking the weather on an app takes how many seconds? 8, 10, 12? Like, if you do that 5 times a day, you've wasted minutes. And this you can do in like less than a quarter of a second. You know, it sort of happens out of the corner of your eye. So I think a lot about sort of these dialectics between the thing, you know, between Frodo or between Harry Potter or between, oh hi, thanks for coming, or between fairy tales and sort of what they reveal about our desires and what they reveal about sort of the wants that we've had forever. One of my an interesting example, I think, for a lot of computer-human interface designers is to think about mirrors, because mirrors are a surface that are everywhere, and they seem like a perfect thing to imbue with information. My Ditto co-founder Josh back there, he and I, for one of the TED Med conferences, made a enchanted mirror that would. Do you remember how many things it did? Let's see it. Blood pressure cuff. It sort of give you weight, weather, blood pressure, and I think in steps walked. So it sort of tried to communicate all this information about your health, sort of superimposed on your body as you're in front of the mirror. As you remember, like this in Snow White, the mirror reveals this sort of narcissistic tendency and the same is true of this product that I'm working on with a startup company. They're testing it in Neiman Marcus right now. It's a magic mirror. This is context. Let me show you the magic mirror. So it's a magic mirror that shows you your recent self, and side by side. So you can figure out, you can see what you look like in one outfit, and you can sort of compare and contrast to a recent try-on. How many people would want this in Neiman Marcus? I don't know. I don't shop in Neiman Marcus, so yeah, right. So it's interesting. And of course, they're doing things that seem creepy to me, which are like share this on Facebook so that my friends can make a decision about which outfit looks best. But again, it sort of uses the surface of the mirror. And so the mirror works as a mirror, and then it also works as an extra service. I brought tonight something else that qualifies to me as an enchanted object, which is a pen. Does anybody have one of these? Okay, this pen is called the Enoto pen, and what's cool about it is it's a pen, and it writes on paper, but it also has a camera and a microphone in it, so it remembers what you write, and it also listens for what's going on while you write what you write. And so if you tap back on your notes to try to get back to who was talking about what when I wrote that part of my notes, it sort of takes you back to the lecture or the conversation or the negotiation at that moment, which I think is like sort of super useful because it's both, and it works also if the battery runs out, you know, and it works if the memory fills up. Like it sort of works as a pen as well. So I'm looking for things that sort of have that capability of being what they are and doing what they do. Hi, and then also becoming sort of something extra and something enchanted. Just a couple more examples before the next part of the book, which is this was a project also that I'm very fond of at the Media Lab, where Bank of America wanted people to feel how they were doing budget-wise. They wanted, like, the problem is with plastic, people just keep using plastic and they don't have any sense of whether they're exceeding a monthly budget or not exceeding a monthly budget. And so we made these wallets that are leather wallets, and it has a variable strength hinge. So as you open the wallet at the end of the, you know, as you get closer to the end of the month and you're closer to your budget limit, it just becomes harder to open. And it's nice because there doesn't need to be a screen anywhere in sight. Like, you don't have to go to the Mint app. You don't have to, right? Like, it's just, it's an ordinary thing. It's a gesture that you do multiple times a day. And it sort of, it imbues this everyday object with a little bit of haptic interface, a little bit of touch-based interface. And how many people have seen these trash cans everywhere? Right. Do you know what they do?
Well,
yes.
I've seen the lights on them, and I have no idea.
They have lights on them. Yes, that's true. Okay. Good? That's a start. I think the lights say that they're working for people who are driving by.
They
but
have solar energy.
right. They have solar panels on the top. Do you know why?
They signal to the garbage collectors when they're full.
Exactly. So they have a trash compactor, so they don't need to be collected as frequently. But also when they do need to be collected, the truck only drives to the cans that need to be collected. So, which is great because the truck doesn't need to drive its normal route and empty cans that don't need emptying. So, you know, you save gas, you save labor, you save traffic, right? Traffic wandering around. Thank you. If anybody has any good, if you want to chime in on any of to help me explain any of these things, please do. So the second part of the book is sort of about the poster that you see on the wall that we put dots on. There are a lot of dots on one of the things that I'll talk about tonight, which there's this camera clip that pretty much everyone everyone I show it to hates. So that's good, but I'll explain what that is. Okay, so the second part of the book covers this framework for thinking about what should we create now that the cost of connectivity and the cost of computation are so small that you can embed it in Lego bricks. Sort of the question for makers and for designers is to like what should we start to connect and how will it impact people's lives? And so I've proposed a sort of fairy tale way of structuring these Internet of Things based on aspirations or desires that we have. So one desire is the desire to be omniscient, to know all. Hi, David. And one of my favorite examples of the desire to know all is William Marston Morrison, who was a professor here at Harvard in the 20s. He lived in a polyamorous relationship with 2 women in the house, and which I think was unusual for the day. And he, maybe because of the stress in the house, I think he noticed that his body reacted to stress, and he invented, believe it or not, the lie detector test, which senses a stress reaction when people are lying. So he came up with this real invention, but then also he wrote a letter to the predecessor of DC Comics and said, all the comic book characters are all men. We should really have an aspirational character so that women will read comics or girls will read comics as well. And so they said, great, knock yourself out. Like we'll pay you to invent this character. So he invented the character of Wonder Woman. And how many people know what's on Wonder Woman's hips? The lasso of truth, exactly. And do you know how it works? Right, you wrap it around someone and they must tell the truth. So it's interesting, like this dialectic is all in one guy. Like he invented the fictional object and the real object. So it's interesting how that can happen in one person. Most of us are inspired by a thing that we don't invent, like a crystal ball, and then we make a product because of it. So back at Ambient Devices in 2001, I worked on this product called the Ambient Orb, and the big idea was to be all-knowing without any cognitive load, meaning to take information that's on the web and put it in your periphery so that you could know what's going on without any text and without any effort, right? Without your glasses on. And so this orb tracked things like the AccuWeather forecast based on color, and it would pulse if it was going to rain, the pollen count if you're asthmatic, the sailing if you have a boat, the fishing, the first derivative of barometric pressure if you're a fisherman, how does your garden grow, and other sources of data. And the big sort of lesson from this was having, which I think is one of the design principles in the book, is you really want information to be collected passively. Like you want to wear something that tracks your steps, but then you want the data presented in a way which doesn't require any effort at all, sort of unavoidable data. Because going to an app, like I've had this what is this, a Jawbone Up? Like I've had this for a few weeks, and the number of times that I've gone to the app and checked out how well I slept or how many steps is very few. Like it's very easy to ignore the app, even if the data is there. So this is one of the principles from the book. So where this company is today, Ambient Devices is working on just helping energy companies communicate to people how much energy they're using in their house and what the price of energy is as energy becomes increasingly variable, the rate of energy becomes variable throughout the day. So, and this wouldn't work as an email, it wouldn't work to communicate, to send somebody an email every 10 minutes and saying, the price of energy is going up, curtail your washing. So it's good because it reflects that data. And just one more story about omniscience, which is, when we were at Ambient Devices, the CEO of Trulient Bank in North Carolina called us and said, I really like the orb, but I want to do an obelisk, a really big one, because I want to present information about how the quality of the customer service on something that everyone can see. Like, I want to create a feedback device that will make people be better customer service reps on the phone at the bank. So we worked with him to make this obelisk that basically glows blue if everything's good and yellow if people are unhappy at the bank. And it's something that he told all of his employees about. And so there was this sense of like we're all working together to do something that's pro that's positive for the customer experience. I wonder if this could show like wait times at the hospital, whether people would behave differently. I was just thinking about you, Martin. Sorry. So let me go more quickly through some of these other examples. So I talk about sort of the fantasy of connecting effortlessly with people. I saw, you see Dick Tracy sort of being able to access anyone through FaceTime on his watch. And that inspired this dedicated connection between two people. In our case, it was two little kids that open cabinetry and feel comfortable opening cabinetry, and their grandparents who we wanted them to talk to as much as possible. I'm going to go on. So I'm just going to go a little bit faster because I want to get to another part of the book too. So this aspiration to use connected objects to live a long life, I think, is one of the categories that you see most for the Internet of Things. There are many things that are connected, and one of the things that inspired Josh and I to create a company that put pill bottle caps on medicine vials was this project at the Media Lab called Music Bottles. And in this case, you have 3 ordinary glass bottles, and when you uncork them, rather than a genie coming out, music comes out. So they know. Wow, and there's 2 audio tracks. That's interesting. So after some iterations, we thought, let's take as a base the normal amber pill vials that everyone gets meds in the US, and let's put a cap that automatically talks to the internet and can sort of spin up a bunch of services because of that. And we found in a study at Partners Healthcare that we could get people to take meds over 90% of the time over a base of about 70% of the time. And part of that was due to the fact that I think I will play this Colbert report. That sort of explains the product in a better way than I could. That was fun. That came as a total surprise to us. Well, I think one of the questions I got today on Radio Boston was about like what will be the driver that makes all of these things proliferate into our lives. And I think this sort of brings up this theme of like sort of who will pay for these Internet of Things. And Josh and I learned at Vitality that the insurance industry pays about $300 billion of unnecessary medical spend because people don't take their meds and then go to the hospital or lose the liver or lose a kidney or whatever the adverse event is. And so there's a huge incentive for these to be given away in order to satisfy that problem, and then also insurance pharma companies want to sell more meds too. So so some of these things may enter our lives as sort of standard packaging, not because you have to go to CVS and actually spend money on it, which is interesting to think about which other ones sort of have built-in business models for which they may be given away. So a couple more examples of things that help us remain vital and track the sort of activities of daily living, either meds or activity or the food we eat or mood and stress. I'm working with this little company as an advisor called Sun Sprites, and they make a little wearable object, which I think is a little bit too big today, but could be a button next year. And it's solar powered, which is sort of awesome because you never have to charge it, so you never have to sort of take care of it. But it measures light that you get throughout the day. So there are lots of studies that show 10,000 lux sort of before noon is important for resetting your circadian rhythm. You know about this, for improving your sleep that night and for giving you more energy through the day and maybe improving your mood as well. So this is just like a little device that just talks Bluetooth and helps track that you can put on your backpack or that type of thing. So that's a new category that I hadn't heard of before. This is another new one. This was a prototype from the Media Lab where somebody noticed that if people eat too fast, you often eat more if you eat quickly. And this is being commercialized by this company called Happy Fork, which is a really bad name. And basically the idea is it has an accelerometer in the fork, and if you eat quickly, it introduces some palsy. So you miss your mouth, I guess. So it's sort of a little bit overbearing device, but and this is something that's just launched last month, which is a cup that has a little mass spectrometer inside, believe it or not, and knows exactly what liquid is inside the cup and the caloric account of how much liquid is inside the cup. So if it's like Chablis versus Diet Coke or whatever, and shows you on the side like that's beer in there and can measure how many beers you've had. I can't imagine actually continuing to use it after the third beer, but so one example of another Boston startup that's doing something interesting to satisfy our I guess starts with Icarus and interest in flying and continues through flying carpets is this company called Super Pedestrian, which is making retrofitting a bike hub with all of the stuff you need in order to have an electric bike. So their data shows that a lot of people don't commute by bike, not because they might get hit by cars, which is a real concern, but because of the concern that they'll be sweaty when they get to work. And so this embeds a motor, regenerative braking, and a battery all in a hub that you can sort of put in an existing wheel and put on your bike, which I'm fond of. I'm going to try this. Would you try this, Sharon? Thanks. Good. I've got that in writing. The last category that I just wanted to show is sort of personal expression. So Legos, as you know, are awesome, and you can build what you imagine, right? Because they're bricolage, right? They're pixels in a way. They're tangible pixels. I worked on a project with Lego a long time ago to embed computation in Lego bricks so you could build the behavior that you imagine. So it had sensors and motors, and you could sort of build your own robot. So it was a robotics invention system and had a simple drag and drop programming language, which I won't show you. But I think this idea of scaffolds for making things is really powerful. And one of the things that makes playing the cello hard is there are no frets, right? And guitar is like much simpler, right, Dave? because of that bricolage, because of the snap to gridness of frets. And I think there are many other things that allow, like paint by number, that allow you to make without being an expert and to feel some success. And I got to work with the guys that founded Guitar Hero in order to change that device from being a joystick-based device. It started off as a play good notes because the music is running, but improvise and play higher notes, lower notes, faster notes, or slower notes. And it was not successful at all, like as a joystick. And I think one of the reasons is because it's just hard to like jam with a joystick. Like it's hard, like it doesn't have the sort of tangibility of something that you hold and you can, really like move, that sort of body scale. And when they moved it into a guitar, it became the most successful video game of all time. This is sort of the same idea for painting, which is rather than mixing your own paints, which is hard, this is using the world as the palette, so you can sort of sample world and make things. Okay, I want to show you one more example, and then I will open to questions. Can I show you 2 more examples?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. I have to pick carefully if I'm showing 2 more examples. One of the frameworks in the book is a ladder of enchantment. And the idea here is that if you're going to start off with an ordinary thing and start to think about what services you could layer in on top of the ordinary thing, sort of job 1 is to make sure it's connected. Job 2 is to make sure it knows something about you, that it's personalized. Then maybe you start to think about how do you integrate a social network into the data and to share that data. Hi, Dana. Next could be a sort of gamification step where you have goals and streaks. And finally sort of embed maybe a story inside. And we worked on a prototype at the Media Lab called the Amazon trash can. The insight here was a lot of people have tried internet fridges, and it sort of seems like a bad idea to try to get the fridge to know exactly what's inside. It seems like sort of too much work. But our idea was, well, why don't you measure the outgoing stream rather than the incoming stream? So it's sort of an auto restocking system. So it has a little camera and barcode scanner that notice what you throw away and then propose that Amazon get you more. And you know, it works and seems like a sort of nice idea, but then we realized that there's actually a moment, there's a paternal moment when you throw something out and that maybe you shouldn't be reordering in like the 3rd box of cookies this week. And, or like strawberries that are out of season, or things that are sourced from a long way away rather than locally sourced. So we put Oscar in the trash can, and sort of he plays the role of being your loving trash, but also giving you recommendations, sort of just little nudges. So if you order coconut water all the way from Asia, it will recommend a better choice that's either greener or better for you or lower cost, which seems like sort of satisfies all of the enchantment criteria. So it's connected, it has a story about it. And Amazon didn't pick it up. You know, they have this like wand or something that they're trying to. How many people have heard about the Amazon wand anyway? So the last part of the book is about how all of these objects, once connected, can start to talk to each other and to sort of collude on your behalf. And I just want to show you one. I was able to teach a workshop in Copenhagen a couple weeks ago with a magician from London who is part of the Magic Circle. And so we came up with, the students did lots of prototyping, but the brief, the sort of creative brief was go to IKEA, pick an ordinary piece of furniture, and think about like what new thing it could become with enchantment. You know, what could it become? What new service could it provide, or what new behavior could it have? So I want to show you one of the fun ones, which was a bench, sort of like the in Hogwarts there was a hat that you could put on that would tell you if you're in Gryffindor. What's the hat called? The sorting hat. So this is sort of a sorting bench. So it talks to your dating profile. I think you'll like the sort of emotional engagement of this. The next part of the video assumes that you can project information as conversational aids to help them. So I hope I've convinced you that that the most desirable way that we'll interact with technology in the future is by embedding services and connectivity in ordinary things, the same things that surround us today, and that those things can be sort of more desirable than phones because they're more humanistic interfaces, more tangible interfaces, and ultimately more desirable. So I'd love to take questions if you have any. Thanks. The book, what would an enchanted book do? Oh, is this book enchanted? Yeah. You know,
Deluxe version.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if you can argue that I think the Kindle does something that is enchanted, which is it notices where you left off. And I think there's a new, maybe somebody can help me with this, but is there an audiobook Kindle zigzag that you can do? Right, so you can sort of, while you're driving, listen to the audiobook version and then read it later on the Kindle and then sort of keeps track of the right place. That seems, yeah, that sort of, that mode switching seems like it's pretty awesome. But yeah, I guess that's my best answer. There's not. I looked into doing an e-ink cover, and the publisher was against adding another even few dollars to the cost of goods. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, where does the information go? Yeah, and it's a great question because all of these sensors are casting off this whole like data exhaust, which is fraught with privacy issues. I guess when we thought about this with the glow cap, and it basically connects to, it has 4 feedback loops. There's this personal feedback loop of connecting to you, right, of sort of prompting you and reminding you. There's a feedback loop to a loved one. So an email every week goes to a loved one if you choose. So that's sort of it's an opt-in only. And then an email can go to a caregiver if you choose. And in a lot of the transplant use cases, they were giving it away to people and saying, we need to know if you haven't taken your immunosuppressant because it's really critical so you don't reject the kidney. And then there's another feedback loop that can go to the pharmacy so that they can restock pills. But I guess our design principle was all of those should be opt-in. And even some of them shouldn't even be recommended at first, right? Like you shouldn't, like just see if how they're doing first, and then if they're having issues, maybe then you propose more connectivity to more parties. I mean, I also believe that most of these devices should really have, or most of these services should have a very quick way to just get absolution, meaning just to get forgiveness, just to blow away all data for all time. And so you can say like, my Nest thermostat, okay, that's great that it understands something about me and it's serving me, but actually I want it to forget every time we walked into the house or left the house, just because I feel like I'm creeped out about that, or I don't want the people I sold the apartment to know, like what our behavior was. And so I think it would be better to have that sort of kill and forget everything about my past switch. I think that's sort of a question we can ask about computing or just sort of modern process engineering, like what's lost with all the efficiencies.
Different level
of efficiency.
And
Yeah.
connectivity and information.
Well, I think a lot. I mean, what I'm interested in with a lot of these objects is sort of what emotional connection do they provoke in people. And so a lot of the like whimsy, like the Oscar in the trash can, is really trying to make them more playful and less just about routinized raw efficiency. But I think it's something really important to keep in mind. I mean, you sort of worry about the displaced labor for all of the jobs that are lost because of all of these objects, because of all the things that the objects are doing. At least I worry about that. Well, I feel like the word magic really describes sort of what our reaction, like it's the most subjective word possible, because things that we're drawn to when we think are magical, we may acclimate over time, but it certainly describes what you feel in your reaction to a new product or service or person in your life. So I thought magic was like a little bit strong, and enchanted was a little bit softer than that. But I mean, it's completely an aspirational word, and so it's trying to set a high bar for what we should be doing as designers. I'll try to address all of your points. Just I don't think I can address all of them. Let's see. Your first contention was about the Google Latitude doorbell, which I described on the radio this afternoon. So this is a product that is, I'll just describe it, which is as people are homeward bound in your family, as they get closer to home, the doorbell plays a ringtone that's associated with that person, so you know that they're homeward bound. And your concern is, what about the data? Like, who's doing what with that data, right? Yeah, I do. I mean, I do think that that all of the new sensors and the data have, have ways to be used for positive ways and for ways that are truly evil. But I guess what I would want people to take away from the doorbell prototype is the idea that as opposed to putting a family member or a set of friends or a set of coworkers on a map, which sort of offers a lot of resolution and a lot of detail about where everybody is, for that prototype we tried to loosen the description of where people were to something that was just, if they're homeward bound and on their way, it makes a noise. So instead of plotting people on a map, it was just trying to give you a sense of that someone's on the way. So it's actually showing a lot less information than Apple's product. What is the product that?
Find My Friends.
Find My Friends, right. That sort of plots other people literally on a map, which does seem overly intrusive.
Well, in both cases, people have to opt in. Is that correct?
Yeah, in all cases, to almost all of these, I mean, I won't make that strong of a general, but it's definitely opt-in. People don't have to use this. You don't have to use Google email because Google is reading all of your email messages and advertising to you if you do use Google email. So use another email service. Somebody was remarking that they declined their mother's Find My Friend invitation. So somebody did opt out to that service. Yeah. Yeah, all of these things, I'm just looking at the poster and what people are in favor of. All of these things seem like active choices that people are opting into, maybe except for the quadcopter delivery drones, which, if you order something on Amazon, it'll just come that way. I don't know, can somebody think of another, of a counterexample where it seems like technology is being forced on us in ways that are coercive and counterproductive? The last comment of the evening was, I love books, and I only want books on paper and dead trees. So we'll end with that. Thank you.